Hi, I'm IKEA, and I'm here to give you only the tip. SHD Exposed Global Event. And as with all global events, you first have to toggle it on in the season menu by going into the season menu, selecting SHD Exposed, and toggling it on with this toggle. And that will allow you to have the global event on and start earning towards the challenges and earning stars that you can spend in the global event shop. And how it works mechanically is that there is a debuff showing on the buff debuff bar, and it's that red icon that is filling up slowly as I'm standing still. And if I go into cover, it will also still very slowly fill up. If I'm out in the open and running around, it actually fills up pretty quickly, and if I transfer it here by doing a melee, it will transfer whatever amount I have saved up. And running around in the open is a good way of filling it up, especially if there are multiple enemies, as it increases per enemy that has you targeted. And indeed, as said, meleeing at any point, so not even with a full bar, will transfer whatever you have stored up as your exposure to the enemy, increasing the damage that they take. And if at full, you also have the option of doing a cover to cover, which will transfer your all of your SHD exposure to all nearby enemies. There will be a sound that plays, and basically whenever you hear that, do a cover to cover, transfer to all nearby enemies, and that will increase the damage that they take, but especially depending on their veterancy. And what very much one of the quirks of this global event is that once you transfer, it depends on the veterancy of the enemy, how much more damage they take, as especially reds take massive amounts more damage, purples take quite a considerable amount more damage, elites still take a decent amount more damage, but names especially barely take any more damage. And one of its other quirks is that because it is a debuff applied to the enemy, it means that it actually also applies to the increased damage, for instance, for turrets and drones, or as well, of course, other skills. It is basically from any sorts towards the enemy. It is not a buff on us, as with most global events, but a debuff on the enemy. As for instance, with Eclipse, a build that normally doesn't benefit much from the global events, here we can make it quite strong by cover-to-cover discharging and doing 750k per fire tick. And that very much is one of the reasons I do enjoy this global event a lot, as most builds that often do not benefit much from global events do so here. And playing it right will let you deal massive amounts of damage and help your team onto victory. And one last thing that I should not let go unsaid is that while this SHD exposure is rising upon yourself, you will start to take increased damage. And that increased damage may not be very noticeable if you're on a full red build. It's a little bit more, but especially if you're doing something like playing a tech tank where your defense is important to you, it becomes quite important to transfer that charge quite often by meleeing, for instance. But especially for other builds as well, it's once you're full, it's a good idea to transfer it with a cover to cover, even if you don't hit the enemies, just to get rid of the charge upon yourself. And that very much makes it why I kind of enjoy this global event, is that it is a decent enough mechanic. The damage buff, while not super great, is still decent, and especially on reds and purples will make them disappear even faster. And the nice thing about it as well is that it applies to builds like Eclipse that normally do not directly benefit from the global events. And it works also decently well solo and in groups, where in solo, of course, you're taking the full attention of enemies, meaning that you fill up quite fast. And in groups, of course, it means that everybody is benefiting from the damage bonus and not just one person with, for instance, with golden bullets. And yeah, that very much will conclude this video. And as always, I gave you only the tip.